6 months after she vanished, a hiker walking through the Pine Ridge Trail noticed something unusual: a patch of disturbed soil, half covered by fallen branches. When police arrived and began digging, what they uncovered would send shockwaves through the entire community. The woman buried beneath that ground was 32-year-old Emily Carter, a mother, a teacher, and a wife who vanished after telling her husband a secret she said could change everything. And that secret was the key to understanding how a perfect marriage unraveled into tragedy. Before the headlines, before the search teams, before the questions that would haunt an entire town, there was Emily Carter. She was 32 years old, a second-grade teacher in the quiet town of Millers Creek, Oregon, a place where everyone knew each other by name and where nothing truly bad ever seemed to happen. Her students adored her. Parents described her as patient, gentle, the kind of teacher who stayed after class just to help a child struggling with homework. She spent weekends at local fundraisers, community picnics, and volunteering at the library. To everyone who knew her, Emily was the heart of her neighborhood. She had this way of making everyone feel seen. That's what her friends always said. But behind her calm, kind nature, there were moments, small, fleeting, that hinted at something heavier. Her sister, Megan, would later say that Emily seemed distracted those last few weeks, like her mind was somewhere else. Daniel Carter, Emily's husband, Daniel Carter, was the kind of man people described as quiet but dependable. A mechanic at the local auto shop, he'd worked there since high school. Friends said he was reserved, steady. A man who didn't say much, but seemed devoted to his wife and their 8-year-old son, Caleb. To everyone around them, they were the perfect couple. The hard-working husband, the caring wife, the kind of small-town love story people pointed to as an example of getting it right. But sometimes, even the happiest photographs don't show the full picture. In the weeks before she disappeared, Emily's sister noticed small changes. Missed calls, short replies. Emily had started to sound anxious, saying she was tired or just busy with school. Though something in her voice told another story. One of her closest friends, Laura, remembered a conversation just days before Emily went missing. They were sitting in Emily's car after grocery shopping when she said, quietly, "I need to tell Daniel something important. I've been putting it off, but I can't anymore." Laura asked if everything was okay. Emily smiled, but it wasn't the same smile her friends were used to. It was nervous, forced. And that conversation, the one she was so nervous about, would be the last anyone ever heard from her. By April 14, 2021, Emily Carter seemed quieter than usual. Her sister, Megan, remembered their phone call that afternoon. Emily's voice sounded shaky, uncertain. She said, "I can't live with this secret anymore." But when Megan asked what she meant, Emily quickly changed the subject. That was the last time they spoke. That evening, Emily made dinner, spaghetti and salad, a normal Tuesday night at the Carters' home. Her son was asleep by 9. Neighbors later said they saw the kitchen light still on around 10. And sometime between that moment and dawn, Emily Carter vanished. What happened inside that house between Emily and Daniel has never been fully known. But police believe that was the night she finally told her husband the secret she'd been carrying. Whatever was said at that table, whatever truth she revealed, marked the final moments anyone saw her alive. The next morning, Daniel called his sister-in-law, Megan. He said Emily had gone out for a walk and hadn't come back. He sounded calm. Too calm, she thought. At 8:14 a.m., he filed a missing person report. Officers arrived within the hour. Emily's car was found parked at Riverside Park, less than 2 miles from their home. Inside, her purse, phone, and keys. It didn't make sense. The car doors were locked. No footprints led away from it. And her phone, when checked, showed no outgoing calls or texts after 9:22 p.m. the night before. Investigators retraced every step, the park, the walking trails, the nearby lake. Nothing. No clothing. No signs of a struggle. No indication of where she'd gone. It was as if she'd vanished into thin air. The search for Emily Carter became one of the largest in Millers Creek's history. Hundreds of volunteers combed through wooded areas, ravines, and open fields. Posters with her face, smiling bright, were plastered across telephone poles and storefront windows. Authorities are asking anyone with information about the whereabouts of 32-year-old Emily Carter to come forward. Local news stations picked up the story. People prayed. Candlelight vigils were held. And through it all, Daniel appeared on camera, teary-eyed, asking for his wife's safe return. But not everyone believed what they were seeing. As investigators dug deeper, they began noticing things that didn't quite fit Daniel's version of events. Small inconsistencies in his timeline, answers that seemed too rehearsed, and a detail about that night that would later change everything. Because while the entire town searched for Emily, detectives were starting to wonder if the person who reported her missing already knew where she was. As the days turned into weeks, detectives began taking a closer look at Daniel Carter, the quiet husband who had stood in front of cameras, pleading for answers. At first, his story seemed simple. He and Emily had dinner, watched television, and went to bed. But when investigators examined his phone records, things started to unravel. He said he was home all night. Yet, at 2:17 a.m., his phone pinged 12 miles away, near the woods by Riverside Park. When questioned, Daniel claimed he couldn't explain it. He said maybe his phone was glitching. But detectives knew phones don't lie. Through phone records, police uncovered something Emily had been hiding. A series of calls and messages to an old coworker named Ryan Mitchell, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Ryan told investigators that Emily reached out a few weeks before she disappeared. She said she needed advice. She said she was pregnant, and she wasn't sure if the baby was Daniel's. That was the secret she'd been carrying, the one she planned to tell Daniel the night she vanished. What happened after that confession remains speculation, but detectives believe that revelation ignited a storm inside the Carter household, a storm that ended with Emily's disappearance. That confession, the one she feared, might have cost her life. 2 weeks into the investigation, forensic technicians searched Daniel's truck. Underneath the bed liner, they found small traces of blood, later confirmed to be Emily's. Detectives also discovered footage from a neighbor's security camera. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the same time Daniel's phone pinged, headlights were seen pulling out of the Carter driveway. Daniel claimed he never left the house, but now they had proof that someone did. It was the break investigators had been waiting for. But there was still one problem. There was still no body, and without it, there was no proof of murder. Hold silence for 2 seconds. Fade in low, suspenseful drone. With no body and no confession, detectives turned to data, the quiet digital footprints that never forget. They retraced every step, pulling hours of CCTV footage, phone logs, and bank transactions. Piece by piece, the image of Daniel Carter's life after Emily's disappearance began to take shape. In the weeks following her vanishing, Daniel withdrew cash multiple times from different ATMs across town. He told investigators it was for household expenses. But there were no receipts, no records of purchases. Detectives began to wonder if Daniel was paying someone, perhaps to help him cover something up. Then, 6 months after Emily disappeared, the call came in. A hiker walking through a wooded area just north of Pine Ridge made a horrifying discovery. Half buried beneath a thin layer of soil and branches were human remains. When forensic teams arrived, they confirmed the impossible. Dental records and DNA testing revealed it was Emily Carter. Next to her body, investigators found a silver heart-shaped necklace, the same one her sister had given her on her last birthday. Music swells, emotion peaks, then drops to silence. The discovery changed everything, and what police found next made headlines. Forensic analysis revealed soil particles embedded in the soles of Daniel Carter's work boots. The composition matched perfectly with samples from the burial site, a secluded patch of land less than a mile from an abandoned cabin Daniel once visited as a teenager. On a gray Thursday morning, detectives arrived at the auto shop where Daniel worked. They waited until his shift began. Daniel Carter was arrested without incident. As officers led him away, he repeated the same words he'd told the press months before. Daniel Carter, I didn't kill my wife. But now the evidence told a different story. And for those who had once believed in the perfect marriage, the truth felt like a betrayal. The trial of Daniel Carter began nearly 1 year after Emily's body was found. For weeks, the courtroom filled with family, neighbors, and reporters, all waiting to hear the truth behind a story that had shaken their small town. Prosecutors painted a picture of jealousy and betrayal. They argued that when Emily told Daniel about her pregnancy and the uncertainty surrounding it, he snapped. They said his pride, his anger, and his fear of humiliation drove him to an unthinkable act. In court, jurors were shown the final text messages Emily sent to her sister on the night she disappeared. Her words were simple, but chilling. If anything happens to me, tell them it was him. The defense claimed there was no direct proof of murder, that Daniel panicked after finding Emily dead from an accident and tried to hide her body. But the evidence, the blood, the soil, the digital trail, told another story. After just 9 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Daniel Carter was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Outside the courthouse, Emily's sister stood before cameras, her voice steady but filled with pain. Emily's sister, we finally have justice, but we lost everything. Nothing can bring Emily back. For her family, the verdict was not victory, it was closure. A chapter no one wanted, finally written. Justice served. But at what cost? Emily Carter's story reminds us that the people we trust most can sometimes hold the power to hurt us the deepest. She wasn't perfect, no one is, but she was trying to do the right thing, to be honest, to start over, to live freely. Instead, that truth became the very thing that ended her life. Her story is a quiet warning that secrets, even the ones we believe will set us free, can destroy everything when mixed with anger and control. In the end, love didn't kill her. It was the lies built around it. If you're still watching, hit like. It helps more people find Emily's story and keeps her memory alive. Do you think this was premeditated or a crime of passion? Let me know your thoughts below.